And hello. How are you all doing on this very interesting Sunday after a very nice blowout victory of the Jacksonville Jaguars? If you're like me right now, you're feeling pretty damn good because that was what we knew the 49ers are. That is how things are done. That is how the game is called, and that is the way the team plays week in and week out. If you didn't see the game, I highly recommend you go back and watch it if you can, if you had it recorded or something like that, or you can get some highlights that really showcase the game in bulk because it was, for the most part, pretty perfect performance by both sides of the ball. An extremely well called game by Kyle Shanahan, an extremely well called game by Steve Wilkes, who was on the sideline during this. My hat off to him. And extremely well played on all ends, from everybody to Bosa and the newly acquired Chaseyoung, to Javon Hargrove, Javon Kinlaw, Cleveland Ferrell, Fredwarner, Talanoa Huffanega, and so on and so forth. A couple of guys who struggled early or struggled at one point and came back hard, like Dre Greenlaw. He had a little trouble, of course, covering Christian Kirk, but who wouldn't? Christian Kirk is a speedster, but he did come back hard. Now, there were an Ambry Thomas, in case you didn't see, Ambry Thomas had a big play that was taken away. There were two Niners that I was a little concerned with a little bit. One was Diamanor Lenore. I can never get his name out. And Shavarius Ward. More concerned about Lenore because he was getting beat by Christian Kirk when he was covering him. Although once again, Christian Kirk is one of the fastest, was one of the fastest players on the Jaguars, and more concerned about him than I was Shavarius Ward because the penalty they called on him at the end, toward the end of the game, which was legal contact, I thought was absolute bullshit. It was nonsense. It was a bullshit call. So I was concerned, though, because there was a segment where Christian Kirk, I think he had over 100 yards. He was killing us, man. I mean, thank God we were able to kind of hold things together because I for a little bit, I was worried that I was worried that Christian Kirk was going to start to expose the coverage we were in and just start breaking things open because they went back to him once or twice. But from that point on, I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better game. They were in Trevor Lawrence's ass all day long. They, for the most part, held Travis Etienne to nothing. So once again, as we always say, when we hold an offense under 100 yards for the most part, we win. So the kid Purdy looked great, man. One of his best performances. I think he was 295 yards, 3 touchdowns. The pass he had to George Kittle, I have it on my page. Please go check that out because I don't know how he got that pass off. You know, I can't say enough about it. I'm so ecstatic that we were able to beat a team with a winning record. I mean, you know, if you watched this game, you would not think that the Jaguars were as good as they were playing as their record, but they were. They had 2 victories on the road, and when being on the road, I meant when they were in other countries. One of them where they beat the Buffalo Bills. And for the most part, when you break down the Jaguars player for player, that is one hell of a damn good team. Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby, Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Evan Engram, and then on the defensive side of the ball, a lot of weapons that Olukan is a tackling machine, Walker, Devin Lloyd. I mean, that's a hell of a good team. Josh Allen, my hat off to them, man. I mean, we had their number today. My hat off to Doug Peterson, too, for doing a great job with them. But again, look, when you break things down, you look at the schedule, look at who we've beaten. We have blown out 2 winning teams. Now, to be fair, they're 2 winning teams with very good defenses, being the Dallas Cowboys and the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that kind of umbrellas a lot of other things. Now, with the 3-game losing streak, of course, yeah, that was catastrophic. It was devastating. But at the same time, for two of those games, and I'm not trying to make amends because it is what it is, but we were in two of those games. We could have won two of those games. It's not shoulda, woulda, coulda. I get that. The one game that got away from us was the Bengal loss, of course. But that being said, this is the way you rebound from 3 losses in a row and where you come back in your rest week. You blow the living shit out of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, they put up the schedule that's upcoming on the TV during the game. And, of course, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We have the Philadelphia Eagles, Seattle twice, and Arizona. Now, for the most part, and I'm just spitballing this, we should go 4-1 in that. We should go 5-0 because I think that the Eagles are beatable, but that's a whole other thing. So this could be the time when we start to see the Niners gel like we do every year, right after the trade deadline, like we saw last year with Christian McCaffrey, right after the trade line so far this year, like we saw today, and from when we acquired Chase Young. And on that note, Chase Young looked great. I believe he had a half a sack. We'll get to the stats in a little bit. Nickbosa looked revamped, ready to go. Fredwarner had a terrific game. I mean, he had an interception. He was a tackling machine. Talanoa Huffanega had another wonderful game, an interception. Again, they were bringing him up. He was hitting everybody. The defense really came to play. I think that Wilkes being on the sideline was a huge aspect, and for people who don't think that it definitely was. It was definitely bothering me all season long why he was in the booth, and I'm happy that Shanahan spoke to him and got him to come down to the field. I think it just shows a lot of respect on his part, and it also shows the defense that you're heavily invested, of course, and that you're not apart from them, as we saw with defensive coordinators like DeMeco Ryan and Robert Saleh. So the defense was flawless today, man. There were a couple of penalties. I believe we had 7 of them. I believe 2 of them were on Shavarius Ward, which one of them was absolute nonsense. The other one was so-so. But the refereeing wasn't that bad today. However, I did see a couple of things they did miss. They looked to me that they missed a collar tackle on Brock Purdy. Somebody has it on their feed. I thought it was too. I screamed out, "Oh wow! Isn't collar?" It was when he got sacked. I forgot who brought him down, but they got him by the back of the jersey. There was another one that wasn't called, but the commentators, I thought, were being a little too ticky-tack with it. I actually put it up on my page where Shavarius Ward, I think he hit, it could have been Travis Etienne. It was a trick play the Jaguars had run, and they threw to Etienne, who broke outside. Ward, his hand came up in Etienne's face, which I guess could have been a penalty, but it was kind of after the fact because he was coming down towards him, really had no other place to put his hands. There was no forearm smash. I don't know what the fuck Derek Moose Johnson was trying to talk about, and the other commentator. And I love Moose Johnson. I mean, I respected him as a player. I thought he was one of the best fullbacks of all time, and I respect him as a commentator. But there was no penalty there whatsoever. Jakemoody was perfect today. Much respect to him. Wishnowsky had a kick that bounced all the way back to the end zone. Again, we don't value how good of a punter he is until you see what he does and you have a defense that's playing that good. And the most important aspect, I think, of the whole day was when we pinned Jacksonville back to the goal line, they were able to move the ball, but we held them to 3. We did not give up 7. That was huge. And again, I always say, and I feel, and I'm sure a lot of you guys too, and I love that you guys are on the live feed, but agree with me or disagree with me. I love obviously I don't like it when an opposing team is in the red zone against us, but I feel very confident with our defense when we're in the red zone because I feel that better that I think the defensive the defensive backfield sometimes plays better, obviously, when there's a limit to the size of the field in which the wide receivers can run. And being that, Christian Kirk was a speedster, that Calvin Ridley, Evan Engram, that team has a multitude of wide receivers that they can use against us. But I felt good against with our backs up against the wall because I feel like that's when we do our best work. Again, I saw a lot of good things out of Javon Kinlaw today, who looks like he really slimmed down a lot, and he's got more of a football-type shape. He looked good. Kevin Givens looked good. Everybody looked good for the most part, man. It was a real knockout win. I was happy to see them rest Brock Purdy, them rest Christian McCaffrey. They couldn't get McCaffrey to an extension on that record. Unfortunately, they tried. most of all, I was happy about seeing Juice catch a touchdown pass. That was huge. And again, Trent Williams and Juice, if you look on my page, you'll see that the touchdown run by Deebo, or one of the runs there, I believe where McCaffrey broke out to the side, was just Juice and Trent Williams just leading the way, grinding down the road. It reminded me of something Vince Lombardi would have called out of his playbook when he used to kind of run that same play around the left side over and over. And again, it goes to show you that when these guys are playing, when they're healthy, when we're blocking the way we are, getting to the edge, we are unstoppable, man. And I don't just mean that for McCaffrey off the end. I mean whether it's Deebo off the end, Kittle off the end, Mitchell off the end, Mason off the end. We destroy people off that side, especially off of Trent Williams' side. For so much for the, speaking of the offensive line, gave up, I think, 1 or 2 sacks, but I thought for the most part the offensive line did their job and then some. Hat off to John Feliciano, who filled in at left guard today. I mean, he's a journeyman. He did exactly what he was paid to do. He did exactly what we would expect out of a journeyman guard. We value guys like that so much far down the season when there's injuries, but they're such important, integral pieces. That's why I was really happy for that signing. Sam Darnell got in there for a little bit, which was good, gave Purdy a blow. And, again, an all-around good win, man. I mean, I think that, if you weren't able to see the game, please check it out because it was an old-fashioned 49ers ass whooping. Everything was just working. I love the play calling. I love the way they were able to implement Deebo back into the offense. Purdy's first touchdown to Ayuk was fucking crazy, man. I mean, he had me standing on my fucking tippy toes with that one. I don't know how we found him in the back of the end zone, but again, this is to the genius of Brock Purdy once again. Throws 3 touchdown passes, no interceptions for the season now. He's got 15 touchdown passes, 5 interceptions. I mean, the guy, I just got through an argument with an old friend trying to tell me and convince me that Purdy's not the guy. Look, show me different that he's not the guy, okay? Today, he looked like the guy and then some, so I don't know what to tell you. The George Kittle, 3 catches, 125 yards and a touchdown. That play where he caught the pass from Purdy, I mean, he was naked, bro. You weren't catching him. I love the way he slowed up. I love Kittle. I know everyone's going to say Travis Kelce. I'll take Kittle any day of the week because, again, I've said this multiple times. And I apologize for being repetitive, but Kittle plays the position the way the position should be played. He's a blocker. He can run, and he catches the ball, and he's great after the catch. He's great in the open field, man. If you go back and watch a couple segments, I think it was the second pass he caught. He was naked in the middle of the field. I don't know how that defense had a breakdown. Mike Caldwell, for the most part, from the Jaguars, has done a tremendous job. But today, again, I think he was going up against a 49er team with a lot of momentum, with a lot on the line, with their backs to the wall, knew they had to come out, really establish themselves in an East Coast early game, and whip their ass left and right, which we did. I mean, we were in Trevor Lawrence's ass all day long. We got him under fire. So if this is the way I feel, that this is a glimpse of what's to come. The combination of Young and Bosa was phenomenal. Ariki Armstead looked back to normal. Javon Hargrove looked great. I think that's exactly what these guys needed, was an extra participant on that defensive line to help mitigate double teams and to make their life a lot easier. So I really, again, for the third time, recommend going back and watch that game because it was a phenomenal win for us, man. Just a phenomenal win. We'll look at some stats. I'm a big stat guy. Again, I don't put everything on the stats, but again, I think the stats play a big part. They give us an idea of what went on, especially in terms of team stats where we see, time of possession, turnovers, penalties, and stuff like that. And of course, then, individual stats as well. But again, if you have the chance, really go back and view that game because it was just an all-out ass whipping left and right, and I was really happy the way this team looked, man. I mean, this was a game I think a lot of us were worried about because we didn't know. You lose 4 in a row. It's different. You're going up against a team that's pretty damn good on both sides of the ball, and you're playing them at home, so it was something to somewhat be nervous about. So looking at some game stats and some individual stats right here, let's just get into it. It was actually a pretty damn good day. in the league as well. I don't know if you guys were paying attention to the other games, but the Minnesota Vikings, man, I mean, I can't believe they're playing the way they're playing without Kirk Cousins and without, Justin Jefferson. Joshua Dobbs looks good, man. Shit. All right, so the Steeler game was pretty darn good as well. This is next week. Let's go to this week. And there's some games on right now. I believe the Giants and the Cowboys are on right now. Another good game was the Cincinnati Bengals and the Houston Texans. A showdown between, Burrow and C.J. Stroud. So for today, let's look at first some of these individual stats from the day. Trevor Lawrence was 17 to 25 for 185, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, sacked 5 times, which was huge. Ex-49er C.J. Beathard got in there a little bit. Brock Purdy was 19 of 26 for 296, averaging 11.4 yards per pass. And we've seen this year that he leads the league in average. 3 touchdowns, no picks, sacked twice with a 148.9 rating. Again, phenomenal game. Travis Etienne was held to 35 yards on 9 carries. Jacksonville abandoned the run at one point when they were getting blown out. McCaffrey had 95 yards. And let's see, Deebo had 3 carries, 29 yards, and a touchdown. And then, of course, through the air, the only guy who really hurt us was Christian Kirk, 6 catches, 104 yards, and 17.3 yards as an average. Other than that, nobody else on that team really did anything in terms of yards. Everybody else was under 30 yards. Going at and looking at our side, George Kittle led the way, 3 catches for 116 and a touchdown. Brandonaiyuk, 3 catches, 55 yards and a touchdown. Deebosamuel, 4 catches, 30 yards. Christian McCaffrey, 6 catches, 47 yards. Shanahan was everybody seemed to be open. Shanahan was just doing what he does best. Let's see. On the defensive side of the ball, again, I've said it before, this Jacksonville team's got a lot of talent. There's Foyeside Oluokun, who came over from the Falcons. He did have 9 tackles and 2 sacks. Devin Lloyd, 10 tackles. So this is a very good young, for the most part, young defense. But they were no match today for us. Dre Greenlaw led the way with 8 tackles. Talanoa Hufanga had 8 tackles. Lenore had 7. When it came to sacks, Javon Hargrove had 1.5. Nickbosa, 1.5. Arik Armstead had 1. Cleveland Ferrell had 1. And Chaseyoung had a half, which was great. We had interceptions by Fredwarner and Talanoa Hufanga. And let's just see. Jakemoody was 2 for 2. His long coming from 39. And Mitch Wishnowsky, 3 kicks, 141 yards, 47 points per average. 2 inside the 20, his longest being a 56-yarder. And now, just going to look at some game stats. I always like to throw these in just to, team stats rather, just to see a bigger comparison of the teams as a whole. And breaking it down right here, the 49ers beat Jacksonville 20-12 on first downs. Obviously, total plays, 49ers 60, Jacksonville 54. Total yards tells the story of the game. 49ers 437 yards total offense to 221 of the Jacksonville Jaguars. We averaged 7.3 yards per play as opposed to 4.1 by Jacksonville. Another thing we should circle. Passing yards, 293 to Jacksonville's 162. And then, of course, let's go down to rushing. We had 144 yards on the ground, held them to 59. We did have 7 penalties for 90 yards. 2 of them I thought were absolute nonsense, as opposed to 5 penalties for 39 yards for the Jacksonville Jaguars. In the red zone, we were 1 of 4. We didn't turn the ball over. Jacksonville turned the ball over 4 times. 2 fumbles and 2 interceptions, and we held the ball just about 7 more minutes than Jacksonville, from 33 to 26. So this was a phenomenal win all around. I don't think we could have asked for a better performance today, but we got it. And that's the most important thing. And now we ride into the week at 6-3. Hopefully, Seattle loses today, which will further solidify ourselves as the number one team in the NFC West. But I also just want to touch on the fact that, I think Chase Young, if this continues, this is going to go along the lines with what we saw. Some idiot on a bike, sorry. What we saw John Lynch do last year when you acquired Christian McCaffrey, this could go down as the best move of the year mid-season because, again, they were wrecking havoc all over that offensive line today. To see Chaseyoung Young, to think about that starting force defensive talent, Chaseyoung Young, Javon Hargrove, and Ariki Armstead. I don't think there's a better 49, a better front line in this league right now. So, next week's a tough game with Tampa Bay. We can't sleep on them. Tampa Bay keeps a lot of games close. Baker Mayfield pretty much is having his best season as a quarterback. It only took him a little while. And they have a lot of weapons, especially on the defensive side of the ball and the offensive side of the ball. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and this Cade Otton who's playing really well. They, once again, cannot run the ball, which will definitely be an advantage for us. But another winnable game, if you take away, in a perfect world, the only game that we really played poor in was the Cincinnati game, we would only have one loss. Okay, and again, I know it shoulda, woulda, coulda, but it's just something to think about. So, all right, people. Early game today, got that out the way. I'll be coming at you with more content this week. For any questions, comments, or maybe you just want to bullshit, please reach out to me via messages on Instagram. I really appreciate you guys listening. Ninernut Podcast out.